Hello and welcome to Cognitions, Speaking the Unspeakable with JP and Stacy D. Stacy D is not in the studio today, but we do have Miss V, and we are always happy to have Miss V. Miss V is a regular co-host of the show. Miss V, how you doing?
I'm doing amazing. It stopped raining. It's all good.
It's good to have you here. Okay, coming up on the show today, our question of the day is, this is part 3 of our coverage of the paraphilias. So part 3, sexual deviance or preference. Today, we are going to cover pedophilia, which is pedophilic disorder, and transvestic disorder. So we're going to cover that. That's coming up later. Before we get to that, check-in time. Miss V, do you have a check-in?
No,
What you got?
I don't have a check-in, but you said that you have a follow-up.
I do have a follow-up.
That we did. So
Yes, I do.
I want to hear about your follow-up. That's my check-in.
Right. Okay. So, for those of you listeners or viewers out there, previously, me and Miss V had a conversation. I wish that monitor was on. Where we had a conversation about not knowing what you want in a mate. And what my response was, and this has always been my response, what my response was is, well, you know what you don't want? Start that list.
Right.
And create that list of what you don't want, because that's a good starting point. But I was thinking about it today, and there is another list that can be made.
Okay.
Here is the way you come up with the list of what you do want.
Okay.
Think about who you already click well with in your life. Friends and family members, because people do a much better job of picking their friends than they do their partners. You can have a friend, y'all been friends since middle school. Y'all been friends for 30, 40 years. If you think about it, if we would put as much effort into choosing our partners as what we put into choosing our friends, then those relationships would last forever also. Because 50% of marriages end in divorce, 50% of friendships are not ending.
That's true.
And so I was meeting with a client, and I was asking him, well, who do you click well with? And he mentioned a friend of his whose birthday is on the same day as his. They click incredibly well. And so this immediately made me think about all my Zodiac clients, because I have some hardcore Zodiac clients. And this is where we need the D, because the D knows Zodiac signs. Yeah, the D knows Zodiac signs. I don't. I know mine. I know about my sign. I know about my mama's sign. That's it. Right. And so, but when he said that, I immediately thought, ooh, my Zodiac people would be all over this. And so we talked about, I said, well, what Zodiac sign is that? what's your zodiac sign? And he said what it was. And I said, describe the traits. And so basically him and this best friend, they shared those traits because they born under the same moon. Is that how it goes with the zodiac? Born under the same moon, or they born under the same stars or something. Mr. Walker, do you know?
No.
What's your sign, Mr. Walker?
Aries.
Aries. Okay. Do you get along with other Aries?
Yes, because we found out a couple other, with the birthday thing on Facebook. Oh, he's an Aries. I didn't know we were that close together. So yeah, I don't have a problem.
And so it seems oversimplified. I was thinking, well, I'm a Taurus. During the month of your birthday, this is what I want everybody to do. Okay. During the month of your birthday, pay attention to your friends whose birthday is during that time and think about how well y'all get along. My birthday's in May. I don't have a lot of people whose birthday is around mine, but one of my frat brothers whose birthday is around mine, and we get along incredibly well. Actually, another one of my frat brothers, his birthday is on the same day as mine, but we do get along really well.
Yes. So I have a question. Well, I don't have a question. I have a thought about this. So years ago, I was, someone was sharing you the zodiac sign thing and all that. So if you look up zodiac signs, because I did it years ago,
which I've never
on
done.
purpose, there's like these things that say, and I'll look it up while we're talking. Zodiac signs that match with each other's and those that don't. So
Right.
I'm a Cancer. I'm July. So the traits of a Cancer are I am emotional, I'm an empath. There's all these things that I am. And so the signs have said that sometimes a Cancer male and a Cancer female, but if they're both these emotional people.
Ooh, that's too much emotion.
Right.
It's
so
not
so
a
I
good
just
fit.
want to share that, it could be good, but there's these zodiac things that say which signs match better with other people.
Which match with
and all this
which.
stuff. And
See, you can't date your sign.
yeah, so that's I was like,
But
yeah.
the Aries people, because one of my clients who is in Aries, like Mr. Walker, gets along wonderfully well with other Aries.
Yes.
But along the line of figuring out what you want in a mate, whether you go by, I don't know if you should go by the zodiac. I don't know enough about the zodiac signs. What I
But
do
it's not
know
a bad idea.
is
I would
take a
just-
look at your friends and your family members and list those traits in those people that you connect with really well. The traits that you love the most about them. And when you are dating, date people who have similar traits to the people that you already have in your life and you love spending time with and you click well with them. Mm-hmm. Look at who's already in your world. That's how you figure out what you do want, because it's based upon what you already have. But what you can also do is look at those family members that you can't stand to be around and be like, let me add this to what I don't want. I don't want nothing like Cousin Pookie.
That's funny.
And my Aunt Josephine, I can't deal with that either. And so you can come up with a list of what you want and what you do not want.
I agree. And often they say the person is right near you and you just don't know. I've heard people say that.
Well, and it's quite possible that they're right near you because you click well with them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. So that was my little follow-up to that, because my initial response was just, well, start with what you don't want. But we can take it to the next level.
We can
you
do
can
both.
form a list of what you do want.
I'm going to do this, you all. I am, because
Make this list. Miss V, please.
I am. And I'm going to
Because I want to know what
I
you
know,
come
and
up
I'm
with.
going to come back. I'm like, and I don't know anything like that, but I am going to be like, So okay.
Okay, so here's my check-in. We are going to the show is going to go on a little hiatus.
Okay.
Right? The end of the month. But what I want us to do is to still post videos to our YouTube page, which we never post videos to our YouTube page, Facebook page, and TikTok page. If you have something to say, and same goes for the D, then we're gonna post it. Just make a video and we're gonna post it. Okay. And so that way we can still have a voice, because you know how sometimes you have something to say, like what we just talked about. If you don't know what you want in a mate, see, I could have just made a video about that, saying, hey y'all, this is what you do. Look around at your people and list their traits. So that's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
So yeah, we're wrapping up with this coverage of the paraphilias, but that's where we're gonna. Then we're gonna go on hiatus, and we'll just post videos, after that. All right.
Okay.
Now, mental health and illness in the news. This is in alignment with the paraphilias. There is something that I had never heard of. I'm disappointed in myself as a clinician that I have not heard of this. But there was an article in The Guardian, and the title of it is Guilty Men Have Got Away with It. Fears over the rise of sexsomnia. Defense in rape cases. I chose this because we cover paraphilias, and because Ms. V is Ms. V attorney at law.
Yeah.
Ms. V, I had never heard of sexsomnia.
Me neither.
Okay. And here's this. People are not getting away with this in America. This is occurring in Britain.
Okay.
Where, as a criminal defense, there are men who are committing sexual assaults, and their defense is that they have sexsomnia. They are sleepwalking. They don't know that they raped anybody. That's their defense, and they've been getting off. Because apparently, if you have sexsomnia, you can have engaged in sexual relations, and you wake up the next morning and you just go on about your day. You have no idea that you have had sex. And so for those who are assaultive, they commit sex crimes. And that's their defense.
So,
It's bizarre.
is it a real thing?
Oh, as I read it, I thought to myself,
Is it?
this is some poppycock and bull crap. But as I kept reading, apparently, this diagnosis is in the DSM-5. So, this is why I'm disappointed in myself as a clinician, because I thought this was some poppycock and bull crap, but apparently it's real.
Oh, wow.
And I had no plans or knowledge of it to cover it with these paraphilias. But I'm going to cover it next week.
Yeah.
I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it in the diagnostic manual, and we're going to cover sexsomnia. It's not listed with all the regular paraphilias that I have been covering. It's somewhere under other, I think it's under sleep disorders. Listen, the DSM-5 is so big. The DSM-5, I say this all the time, it's the therapist's Bible, okay? It's how we diagnose. This thing is like 3-4 inches thick. Now, I can't be expected to have the whole thing memorized, but after 25 years, I should have heard of this. But they're not getting away with this crap in America.
Okay,
In America,
that's probably why.
But their eyes are open. They appear to be awake. So when the victims say, no, your eyes were open. The person's eyes were open. It's like, well, but in sexsomnia, sleepwalking, period. It's basically sleepwalking, except these people are freaky.
It's not funny. I'm sorry.
They can't just walk around and they sleep like all the other sleepwalkers. They got to take their clothes off and have sex. Damn freaks. Okay. This is considered to be a rare sleepwalking disorder, which is why it's not listed under the paraphilias, which it should be. Because they're having sex. They engage in sexual activity while they are asleep. And apparently, it found 80 cases over the past 30 years where defendants accused of rape, sexual assault, or child sexual abuse claimed to have been sleepwalking or suffering from sexsomnia at the time. This is where it gets horrible. Because, see, child sexual abuse. See, now we're crossing over to the pedophiles who are walking around their houses asleep and molesting children and saying, I have no idea what my child is talking about. So we have to cover this. We have to cover this next week.
Absolutely. That's horrible.
Yes, it says, but while there were only occasional cases in the 1990s and early 2000s, the analysis reveals at least 51 in the past decade and 8 in the past year alone. In about 60% of cases where sexsomnia was part of the defense, a not guilty verdict was returned. Overall, the average jury conviction rate for rape was 58% in England and Wales. What they are basically saying is that the juries are letting them off because it's such a foreign they don't know what they don't know what to think. So they're like, what do we do?
My concern is when you have situations like, people here being, accused of rape and stuff, and they're going to be trying to use it on a trial this week.
They're not going to get away with that in America. America don't care if you sleep, you awake. Because if you think about it, you can have people who can claim they're sleepwalking and commit murder.
Right.
In their household or outside of their household. But this is not
I think
Great
the problem
Britain.
that article
You go to
is
prison up in
even
here for that.
in the paper and all of that, it's people are going to be trying it, and with
Oh, yeah.
I guess you're saying that they're having sex with unconsensual sex.
Yes.
While they're
They're
sleeping.
committing sexual assault. Some of them are having regular sex with their partners. And so what they're saying is they are now trying to distinguish. A defendant has to prove that they have had other sex while asleep. They basically have to have a partner confirm, look, I woke up, this food was on top of me and was asleep or didn't remember the next day because their eyes are open. You don't know. See, I've never seen a sleepwalker before. Have you ever seen a sleepwalker?
No.
Sleep, it's kind of rare. Mr. Walker, have you ever seen a sleepwalker?
No.
Professor. The professor sleepwalks. Professor.
The professor's been in here
Because he
sleep.
don't remember, right? He was,
But I wasn't walking.
oh my gosh. So
I might be
You don't remember, Professor, because you was asleep.
No, I wasn't walking.
Oh, you wasn't walking.
Sleep, but I wasn't walking.
right. So one of the things I just thought about, in regards to people getting off. So if they don't have, I guess, a partner that can say, yep, the only other way they could even ever legitimately, because it goes back to truth, intent, they took a lie detector test. I'm just trying to, in my
Exactly.
head, I'm trying to understand,
Take a lie detector test.
because then it's like, normally if you're lying, it'll, I guess, whatever you're, it'll do stuff to
Yes.
say. So it's more of, they gotta be telling the
Well,
truth.
because-
but people know how to pass those tests.
Well, they're saying true. Some people do know how, but I don't know. I think they've
Dang.
made a lot of advancements with lie detector tests. Like it's
Good.
pretty hard to pass lie detector tests when you're guilty, but because they are saying they don't. Excuse me. They're saying they don't remember. That's what the question would be. They would need to trick they would need to pass the lie detector test convincingly that they do not remember anything. And that they have a life history of walking around sleeping, having sex. Just in the dorm, wake up in somebody else's bed.
That's like walking around for years assaulting people.
Essentially. The non-consensual, yes. Now, I would assume that if it's taking place with their spouse, I don't know, because they say with sleepwalking, you're not supposed to like just wake them up. So for a spouse, if you wake up and your spouse is on top of you,
You gonna
all naked and sweaty, if you wake them up abruptly,
I know.
you might get the hell beat out of you, because apparently when you when you wake up a sleepwalker, they are startled that they're out of their element and they become combative. So now you got a naked person on you that you got to fight.
Oh wow.
It's time to get a divorce. See, that should be under the 50%. The 50% of people who is like, we're so done. I'm so done.
Right.
You might not remember what the hell happened last night, but I ain't never gonna forget it. And we are so done. Here's the reason why I can't imagine a person staying married to somebody who has sex insomnia, is because apparently they could have sex with anyone. How can you have kids in the house, right? But here's the thing: when it comes to what they would, let's do devil's advocate. What the sexsomniacs would say is, well, if you're not a pedophile by day, you're not going to be a pedophile subconsciously through your sleep at night. And psychologically, that makes sense. Okay. What a person would do is carry out what is in them during the day. Possibly. But if a person has deviant fantasies, which is what we have been talking about for the past 3 shows, they might act out something that they would not act out during the day, because there's a lack of internal controls.
Absolutely.
So they would still be dangerous. Even a person who, because they might say, I have never committed a sex crime in my whole life. So I do not remember doing this to this person. But you had it in you on some level, because it came up out of your subconscious state and you acted on it because you didn't have any, your watchdogs were asleep. Like, there was nothing to stop you in your sleep. You acted out an underlying drive, deviant, sexual.
And I've seen the movies
drive.
where people sleepwalk, and I know they're movies, and they kill people.
Yes.
Sleepwalk. I mean,
when you think about it,
I've seen the movies. I ain't heard it about real life, but the movies often come from something.
We
They're based on
probably should
something.
cover sleepwalking and sexsomnia, because I personally do not know a whole lot about sleepwalker. I've never seen a sleepwalker.
I haven't either.
I don't think I've ever even met anyone who
Except on the
sleepwalks.
zombie movies, because they look like they sleepwalk.
They do. They do. And
That's
so
funny, but
I would be If I was a sleepwalker, I would be terrified because the fear in being a sleepwalker is that they're going to walk out into traffic. But apparently now there's a whole nother fear
Absolutely.
that you can be in your house minding your own business and all of a sudden you got somebody naked trying to do something.
They say sleepwalkers, they go in the refrigerator, they do, I mean, they could do anything.
But they're doing what they would be doing during the day.
Okay, which is going to the fridge and all. Okay.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm saying one side of this would say, well, a sleepwalker isn't a dangerous person. They're just acting out what they do during the day. But then the other side, when it comes to sex somnia, that side would say, well, this person has never committed sex crimes and they don't remember it. They should be found not guilty. But it's like, okay, but they had it in them because it came out in their sleep. So then it's the defense would basically say, but can we prosecute someone for something they have in them? Well, we can if they acted on it. Well, can we? Because he was asleep. You see how it
Because
goes
they
back
have
and
to
forth.
prove intent.
Yes,
Lord.
that's what
So-
really complicates it,
So,
and that's why they're getting off.
what is the people that are being charged with it, if they have spouses or whatever, but who are they attacking? I mean, who are they assaulting? I think you gave a breakdown earlier. But
Well, it just says I'm going to cover more thoroughly next week.
Okay.
It just says that they're committing sex crimes against adults and children. I'm under the assumption that it's extrafamilial as opposed to intrafamilial, but it could be intrafamilial because if they're committing sex crimes in their sleep in the middle of the night, there are no children out on the street. That's intrafamilial.
Because it's making me wonder, how are they getting turned in? Which goes back to,
The victims.
how do they know it hasn't happened before? Meaning the person doing the...
Well,
you
and it could
see-
have happened with other people who didn't report it.
Right.
And if you think about it, you think about in a dorm, a frat house, a sorority house, a person might be apprehensive to report something like that. In a frat house, like to get somebody to report that they frat brother came all up in their room and was naked and freaky and eyes wide open, it's like that fool was awake. And so then the sex somniac is wondering, well, why is Billy looking at me all funny today? Well, because you was all up in Billy's damn room last night.
So that's
And you was doing
but
horrible things.
That's a different issue too, though. So if that's a same-sex somnia act. So if they would do what they would do during the day anyway, I mean,
Right.
Okay.
Like, I can see when I
Yeah.
first read it, I was like, oh, they're so stupid in Britain. But as I thought of it, the more you think about it, it's like I can kind of see how this is a complicated legal matter because of intent. But this is the one, because we got to, no offense, Miss V,
go ahead.
but we got a crooked justice system here. Our criminal justice system is just as crooked as the day is
That's
long.
why I'm trying to
In
say,
America, you going to prison.
You
They
need
don't
to-
care you got intent or not. They're like, listen, you committed the crime. Your eyes was wide open, and we don't believe you. Because you could be innocent in America, and you going to prison.
That's right. That is right. That is right.
So
I'm
America's like, look, we believe in prisons here. So you
Yes,
you can
and they
say,
do.
I have sexsomnia and I didn't know I was doing it. In America, they like,
I wonder if people
tell that to
tried
your
that
therapist
here,
in the
right?
prison.
Yeah, I wonder.
I think that people know our criminal justice system here
Like-
is ruthless. You better go to Britain and try that mess out. Don't try that mess here. And so what here's the thing. They are just talking about people abusing it. There's a Dr. Neil Stanley who is an independent sleep expert who has provided expert evidence in trials where sexsomnia was raised as an issue, and said that while some claims of the condition were undoubtedly genuine, others were not.
Got it.
It's really hard to tell if a person is truly a sexsomniac or not.
Why?
And so, well, because anybody can lie and say, I've never seen this person before.
And their spouses can vouch.
And
Well,
then
it
the
happens all
spouse
time.
has to
That's
say,
why the lie detector test is important.
mm-hmm.
That's that other piece of like,
That's
So
where
how
that's
do
where the lie
you-
detector test comes in. And so they're saying here, because of course it is sexsomnia, you're found not guilty. Judges haven't a clue. Juries haven't a clue. So to these criminals, it's worth a try. It's scary
that's very
when you think about it, because they said that the attempted use of sexsomnia by defendants had massively skyrocketed in recent years, and that such claims were very difficult to definitively disprove.
And that's what I'm concerned about here. People won't be trying to.
And so this, it is an issue. So I'm going to cover it more, but it does say sexsomnia is recognized in the DSM-5 Diagnostic Manual of Psychiatric Conditions and is a type of parasomnia, a disorder involving abnormal sleep behavior. So we're not going to cover all the parasomnias, but we're going to cover that one because I had no idea. I had no idea. Okay. Ms. V, you have any final thoughts on sexsomnia?
Sexsomnia in active duty military, and it's on the rise. I just
In
found
America?
it. Well, hold on. I just at Oxford, of course, and I was like, what? To me, I'm like, people are going to see it and they're going to be trying to use it more because, again, in the military, the barracks, when those ladies are being, abused and stuff.
They have a huge amount of sexual assault in the military anyway.
Yep.
A astonishing amount that people are unaware of. And when it comes to military sexual assault, it's not just female soldiers. It's
Right.
a lot of male soldiers who are sexually assaulted in the military. We could do a whole show on that, but we don't have time to cover
I
it.
know, I'm sorry. It's
But we
like it's
could.
making me look. I was like, what in the
Oh yeah,
world?
oh yeah. When I was doing my trainings for evidence-based PTSD therapies, one of the things that they covered is the high rates of sexual assault that oftentimes with the male soldiers it goes unreported. Of course, men are less likely to report sexual assault. So, all right, let's get to diagnosis.
Okay.
It's time to diagnose. We are going to start with pedophilic disorder. This is a pedophile, and pedophilia is one of the paraphilias. Okay, as I've said before, paraphilias are, for lack of a better term, deviant sexual practices, out of the ordinary sexual practices. Okay, and they are classified as paraphilias. Pedophilia is one of them. Pedophilia is deviant. There ain't no question about that. Okay, so here's the diagnostic criteria. Over a period of at least 6 months, recurrent, intense, sexually arousing fantasies, sexual urges, or behaviors involving sexual activity with a prepubescent child or children, generally aged 13 years or younger. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing for people because oftentimes people are like, well, wait a minute. I thought a pedophile is somebody having sex with any kid. No, there are different types of sex offenders. If the kid is prepubescent, it's considered to be pedophilia because their core attraction is to prepubescence. They don't want pubic hair and all these things. They are truly attracted to children as opposed to anyone who looks like an adult.
Got it.
And so if a person molests a child who's in puberty or has gone through puberty, that's still child sexual abuse. It's just not categorized as pedophilia because they have already gone through puberty. And so that's what makes it pedophilia, is the prepubescence. Okay. The individual has acted on these that's criteria A that I just covered. And note, you do not have to have acted on it. If you just have fantasies or urges, you would meet the criteria A for pedophilia. Criteria B, the individual has acted on these sexual urges, or the sexual urges or fantasies cause marked distress or interpersonal difficulty. And so now we're getting to, okay, if you've acted on it, you're absolutely a pedophile. But if you've never acted on it, but it is causing you marked distress or interpersonal difficulty, then you meet the criteria for pedophilia. Now, this is where this gets a little controversial. What about the people? Because, see, there's a segment of freaks who are left out in this. Okay.
Yes. He's laughing too, I know.
But
He didn't say
y'all laughing.
people. He said a segment of
Hell
freaks.
no, we speaks the unspeakable. This is speaking the unspeakable. These are freaks. And
Okay.
and if you really listen to the diagnostic criteria, there's a segment of freaks that are left out. Those who have the urges and the fantasies, they don't have the behavior, and they are not psychologically distressed. According to the diagnostic manual, they don't meet the criteria for pedophilia. The problem with this criterion is if you are even having fantasies or urges about sex with a child, you should be classified as a pedophile. Just because the fact that you are not in distress means that you are also a sociopath. Why are sociopaths able to dodge the diagnosis?
I agree.
Because any person with a level of empathy is going to feel horrible about having urges to molest children, even if they go their whole lives without doing it. You see, that's my issue with the DSM on this diagnosis. Now, let me say, the DSM is about 1 million people who write this diagnostic manual, okay? But I'm going to say this. The vast majority of them, nearly all of them, are psychiatrists. Because if they give some of us clinical social workers up in there and clinical psychologists, we're going to be like, hell no. They should be considered a pedophile for having the urges. And the fact that they are not in distress makes them worse than the ones who are in distress. So if you're in distress about it, you freaking out like, oh my God, I can't believe that I can't believe I have these urges and da-da-da-da. And then your therapist says, you're a pedophile, right? Because they're in distress. But then the sociopath, who has, which clinically, antisocial personality disorder, the sociopath is sitting up in therapy. I got fantasies of molesting kids, but I haven't done it. Well, how do you feel about that? I feel fine.
And so now
I ain't did it.
they're not a pedophile.
Oh, well, technically, you're not a pedophile. What?
They're
But
gonna
you
be
are a
the main
sociopath.
ones. Right. They're going to go do stuff. And it's like,
I'm diagnosing them with something. Let me listen, freaks. Don't come up in my office with fantasies of sexual interactions with children. You are leaving with a diagnosis
Right.
of something. thing.
I have a question. So, if people come to you for whatever reason, they come to any therapist, and then you give them,
And
a
I'm trained in sex offender treatment.
Yes, and you give them,
did it for years.
and you give them a diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Can they say, oh, "Okay, thank you," and leave the paper there? You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Uh-huh.
So nobody will know.
No.
Oh.
No. People don't walk around. No.
I mean, you see what I'm saying? It's like at some point, how do you
diagnoses
make sure that
don't technically follow people until the therapist enters it in their billing to the insurance company.
Okay.
See, that's when a diagnosis follows a person, is once it is entered into any insurance portal.
Like they seek help for it.
But as far as the police and them people, like, oh, if there was like a database where we diagnose somebody with pedophilia and it goes to the popos to alert them to watch this person, doesn't exist. So, yes, they would basically, get up and walk out of my office and be like, oh, well, totally unaffected by it. Okay, here's criteria C.
Sorry.
The individual is at least 16 years old. You have to be 16. And there's a problem with this, too. But I'm going to get to it in a minute. The individual is at least 16 years old and at least 5 years older than the child or children in criteria A, which the children that they sexually abuse. Note, do not include an individual in late adolescence involved in an ongoing sexual relationship with a 12 or 13-year-old, even though the 12-year-old would be prepubescent. And so what this criteria says is that if the person is 16 and if they are at least 5 years older, right? This carries over into a different type of sex offense, which is statutory rape. If a person is in a consensual relationship, they still are committing a sex crime. Mm-hmm. Let me make this clear to those who are having sex with 13-year-olds. You might not meet the criteria for pedophilia. You're still going to get locked up, though, because you're committing a sex crime. You're just not technically considered to be a pedophile. Okay. The individual is at least 16 years of age and at least 5 years older than the child. Okay. And so they would have to be 16 and the kid would have to be 11, which is the reason why it says do not include an individual in late adolescence involved in an ongoing sexual relationship with a 12 or 13-year-old. But they are still a criminal. They're committing a sex crime. Now, specify whether, here are the specifiers, because you give a diagnosis and then you break the diagnosis down with specifiers, right, to further clarify. Specify whether it is exclusive type, which means attracted only to children. There are pedophiles who are only attracted to children. This does not mean they don't grow up and get married, but they are only getting married so they can have access to her children. Okay. And so this goes back to being careful about the step parents that you bring up in your house. All right. And then the non-exclusive type, which is they're attracted to adults and children. So that's one specifier. And then the next specifier is sexually attracted to male children, sexually attracted to female children, and sexually attracted to both. That's the next specifier, who the pedophile is attracted to. And then the last specifier is this specifier is limited to incest. And so you're talking about incestuous, which is intrafamilial, versus non-incestuous. And so you would diagnose a person as a pedophile, and then you would say if they are exclusive or non-exclusive children, or children and they attracted to children and adults. And then you specify if they are only attracted to males or females or both. And then you specify if it's only incest, because you have some pedophiles who are only committing these sex offenses against family members, and they don't take it outside the house. Now, working on the sex offender treatment team, I usually would see sex offenders who were non-incestuous more so than the incestuous. But pedophiles are usually not admitted to treatment because they're a pedophile. They are, no amount of therapy is going to change who a person is attracted to.
You said that last time.
Pedophiles just get locked up.
You're right. I
Compared
remember you
to
said
other
that.
sex offenders who are committing child sexual abuse, but it's not because that's their core attraction. Okay, there are other family dynamics and things at play. All right. So we have a question. Who are those?
Who, or what do they call?
Who?
They call them
What are they? Who are those caused
prey on children that are younger.
who prey on children that are young enough to not get pregnant? That's a pedophile, because that's prepubescent. If they are too young to get pregnant, they are prepubescent. They most likely do not have developing breast or genitalia or pubic hair. Okay, so the next question, so maybe not get caught since there is no evidence, if no chance of getting a child pregnant. Here's the sad thing about our justice system, is that there are people who have had sex with kids and got them pregnant and still got off. And here's a problem with this diagnostic criteria. The individual is at least age 16, which means a 15-year-old cannot be diagnosed with pedophilia. A problem in our legal system, and please speak on this, Ms. V, is that at least in Missouri, if you are in a foster home and an older child sexually abuses a younger child, and even if it's consensual sex, it's sexual abuse because of the age difference. Or even if an adult, because there was a foster home here where an adult family member sexually abused one of the foster kids, and he got off because in the state of Missouri, if you are not in a position of caretaking, they don't consider it to be a sex crime and the kid gets away with it, or the adult even. And so because the foster parent had not had their adult family member in the role of babysitter, he was just visiting the home, nothing was done. He had sex with underage kids in the house.
More than once, sounds like.
But he wasn't. That is the problem with the legal system.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean,
Why should you have to be in charge of a kid in order to be prosecuted for a sex crime? You had sex with a kid. How is
Absolutely.
that not enough?
I agree.
That should be enough. This is something that infuriated me for 2 decades working with kids in the foster care system. Because I would have juvenile sex offenders that I was seeing who you would hotline them and they would not be held accountable. Committing sex crimes in schools, in the home, and it's like, no, they weren't in a position of authority. Whereas in Kansas, I had all kind of juvenile sex offenders on juvenile probation because they had been found guilty in court order to treatment. So
You wonder why, and I don't know. That's not an area that I practice in, but I'm wondering. So one court system says we're going to hold them accountable, the other doesn't. Why? I mean, we have to go back and look at the legislative history of the
Different-
laws in Missouri because I would say hold them accountable.
Missouri's primitive.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids are getting away with, more kids are getting away with sex crimes in Missouri because they're not in a position. But it's not just kids, it's adults also. Like an adult, if he or she is not an official babysitter, and I say he or she because there are female sex offenders, okay? If they are not in a position of authority, it's not considered a sex crime. Okay, let me see. There's no more questions.
So what if these kids are dating each other?
Well, that's consensual.
But it's
But it's
still
still
going
a
to be
sex crime.
statutory.
But what if
Yeah.
one's-
Yeah, that's
what if
your
one's-
statutory rape kind of case where, you have like an older person in a relationship with a younger person. They may be 5 years younger, 3-4 years younger, and it just depends. When I was doing sex offender treatment in Kansas, they would be held accountable for that a lot of times, and they would get convicted.
in those ages?
In Missouri, I did not experience kids getting held accountable for statutory rape.
I think it
Yeah,
depends.
what's those ages? What are you talking about? Is there certain age groups put in a different category like statutory, or what if they're the same age, or is there
Well,
categories?
see, now you're getting into age of consent. The age of consent, let's say, and I believe in Missouri, the age of consent is 16, which means that no kid under the age of 16 can agree to have sex. So even though you can have a 15-year-old who has a 17-year-old boyfriend, and the 15-year-old agrees to have sex, like, that's my boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, according to the law, they're not legally old enough to consent. So the 17-year-old can be held accountable for a sex crime. But usually it only occurs if the parent of the 15-year-old is like, I want charges pressed. He's 17 or he 18 or whatever, and my kid is 14 and they had sex. And I want him held accountable. Okay. And so that's where it gets really confusing, is age of consent, legal consent, and how many kids are consenting to have sex even though legally they cannot agree and give consent to have sex, and is the older person held accountable. And I'm gonna tell you, the main reason why the accountability is so low is because if you pull up the Watchdog app, there is thousands and thousands in every neighborhood. There's sex offenders everywhere. And so basically the legal system is like, we don't even have the time, room, or space to try this 17-year-old for having sex with their 14-year-old partner.
So what if they the same age, like 14 years old, 14 years
Two 14-year-olds are not legally able to give consent to have sex. But it's not a sex crime.
Okay.
They're not going to be charged because they're the same age.
So it depends.
But technically, they have had illegal sex with each other. They just happen to be the same age.
So what if the parents?
See, what will they do to him?
Nothing.
He's like, the parents want to tell.
Yeah, they both at fault.
Right.
Yeah, they're both guilty.
Yeah.
But they're not gonna be in juvenile court and held accountable. They two 14-year-olds who decide to have sex. And so what people do is say, you do realize you're not old enough to consent to have sex.
Right.
To a 14-year-old, though, they can't wrap their mind around that. Their perspective is, you telling me I can't give permission to do what I want to do? That's exactly what we mean.
Right.
But this is my body. I can have sex. I'm 14. They 14. I can legally. No, you can't.
Absolutely. So then you put the kids into some counseling or something to where they get
To learn
some
healthy
other,
sexuality.
Yeah.
Because the legal
'Cause
system is not a
makes
fix
sense. Right.
for these
That's
things.
right. I agree.
The legal system has so many holes in it. The legal system is just not a fix for this. But we've covered the pedophiles, okay? And what I want everyone to know is that even if a person is not classified as a pedophile, that doesn't mean you're not a sex offender. You're just not a pedophile. It doesn't mean you're not a statutory rapist. It doesn't mean you're not a regular rapist. It doesn't mean that you're not an incestuous sex offender. Because let's talk about incestuous sex offenders. Let's talk about structural family dynamics. You can have a father or stepfather whose spouse is emotionally and physically unavailable, like maybe riddled with addiction. Mom is strung out on meth. The teenage daughter becomes parentified. Family structure, parents, kids. This parent is gone because she's strung out. So you have the father, you have the child. This child rises to the level of being a parent and starts cooking dinner, doing laundry, taking care of the younger siblings. And what happens with some of these men is they begin to lose sight that their daughter is their daughter. They begin to interact with their daughter as a partner. The lines get blurred and they commit a sex offense. That's a totally different type of sex offender, but it's way more common than a pedophile.
Common.
Pedophiles are not typically in families like that, except the type who is non-exclusive. They're attracted to both adults and kids.
Mm-hmm.
But the exclusive ones, they're not all up in a family like that. And so those types of sex offenders actually do very well in therapy. They have to go through their 2 years of sex offender treatment. The victim goes through sex offender treatment. The mother, who's strung out on meth, of course, she has to go through treatment. Like the whole family goes through treatment to realign the family structure, get the parents back on the level they're supposed to be on, get the kids back on the level that they are supposed to be on. And those kids are oftentimes reunified back into the family. Well, really, the kid is usually not pulled from the home. The father is ejected from the home. But if the father completes the 2 years I'm talking about in Kansas, okay? This is how it was done in Kansas. Missouri, it's just kids ain't safe over here. But I worked on cases where we would do the 2 years of therapy, intense sex offender treatment, plethysmographs, lie detector tests, everything. The father would do apology sessions, but we would work to get that kid back on a kid level, work with him to no longer see, because these are not men who are pedophiles.
Right.
These are men who typically they've never committed a sex offense. And so realigning that family structure allows that family to be reunified with precautions in place, of course.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about soul ties. I'm thinking about something totally different. Like, what? So even if people get in therapy, it's like, that's crazy.
But
gosh.
And that's the
That's
difference. Pedophiles are not accepted in the treatment programs because you can't change what a person is attracted to. They're always going to be a pedophile. They typically just go to prison. But that father who the family structure got off kilter, and they end up, that whole family can be reunified.
Got it. I hear about that sometimes with like step families. Like, you marry someone's mom, and then somewhere, for whatever reason, the mom and then you marry your stepdaughter. All sorts of great stuff.
Which is different.
I know.
You talking about different kind of freaks, Miss V. All right, that's our show for today. Talk about different kind of freaks.
But I have a question before we leave, if we can.
Okay.
Counseling for healthy sexuality, meaning classes in high schools and stuff, because we got to get the kids this information.
It needs to occur in high schools. The problem is you have parents who are like, I don't want the school, I don't trust the school to be teaching my kids about sex or healthy sexuality. I don't want it happening. I'll teach my kid about sex when I want to. That's the controversy. But in my opinion, healthy sexuality needs to be taught in the schools.
I agree.
You just have parents who are opposed to it. And so what the solution is consent forms.
Right.
For those parents who are okay with their kids being taught healthy sexuality and about sexual boundaries so that they can protect themselves from sexual abuse,
Yes.
have them sign a consent form. The other parents who don't want it, fine. I think the same thing goes when it comes to religion in the schools. If you got a parent who's like, look, we don't love the Lord, we love the devil. Okay, well, you don't have to have your kid attend mass or whatever the school is doing. Like, your kid does not have to participate. I think that there is room for kids to be able to participate in what they want to participate, and those who don't want to participate don't have to. It doesn't make sense that there are these blanket policies that apply to all kids. So you have a handful of parents that don't want their kids to be taught healthy sexuality, so the schools aren't teaching it at all. What? Come on. And so then you have kids who don't understand sexual boundaries and don't know how to protect themselves. That's a problem.
It is a problem.
Okay. Did we cover everything? Ooh, this was a lot. We didn't even get to the other sexual disorder. Okay. We didn't even get to transvestic. We're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to transvestic next week.
Amen.
Okay. What'd you say, Miss V?
I said amen. It's
Yes.
a lot, because it's all out here, and the kids and the people, grown-ups too, meaning we don't know. Anyway, yes.
It's a lot.
Counseling for healthy sexuality and boundaries, classes, training, something. Get your consent form, y'all. We need to have
Get
a class.
consent forms. Or it should be offered in the community. Parents should have the option of being able to take their kids to the community health center, to the community mental health center. They're like, when it comes to healthy sexuality classes, they can be taught anywhere.
They teach them there?
They should.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like,
Yeah, we taught healthy sexuality at Wyandotte Mental Health Center, which is a community mental health center. And so some parents don't feel comfortable talking about that with their kids. They just don't. They don't feel comfortable talking about healthy sexuality. And so they need somewhere, because the kid needs they need that psychoeducation.
absolutely. Well, let's talk about that offline. We're going to
Right.
We get you to do
All
a
right.
class.
Thank you all for joining us. And
Class.
remember, worry about nothing, pray about everything. Thank you, and God bless.
Amen. Thank you.